So let me summarize whatever we have done in today's class. So we have defined database. So database is a collection of related data, right? So for example, student database will contain student ID, student name, age, right, address, contact information, and so on. So it's a collection of interrelated data and a set of programs that act on the data. So DBMS is a software that is used to define a database, right? So define a database means we'll define the schema of your database, right? So for example, name is going to be character data type, roll number is going to be integer data type, right? Age is going to be integer data type, right? Your marks or grade will be character data type. Overall CGPA will be floating point data type, right? So we'll define the database structure. So DBMS is a software that is used to define the structure of the database. It is used to define the database, construct a database. So we'll be constructing a database by using different commands, like you have some insert command to insert records into a table. You have update command to update the values of your record, right? So will be so DBMS is a software that is used to define, construct, and manipulate a database. We'll be manipulating a database using a lot of operators. We have select operator to retrieve the records that are present in a database and so on, right? And we have a lot of commercial database management systems available, right? So Oracle Corporation, you have Oracle. So Microsoft, you have Microsoft SQL Server. IBM, we have IBM DB2, right? And we have also some popular open source and freeware like Postgres, MySQL, and so on. And objective of any commercial database management system is to store and retrieve the data in an efficient manner, right? So in the database management system software, it helps you to store the data and retrieve the data in an efficient manner, right? Then we have discussed about the applications of database, right? So database can be used in the entire enterprise, right? It can be used in finance department to store accounts payable, accounts receivable, right? It can store the details about the liabilities and assets of an organization. It can be used in marketing department or sales to store the information about the customers, the product or services available in a particular online store, and purchase information of customers, and so on. So database can be applied in different domain, like it can be used in banking and financial institutions to store the customer details, to store the uh, loan details and banking transactions of a customer. In universities, it is used to store the student details, course information, to generate grade sheets for the courses registered for the students. We go for databases. And airlines, we use it for storing reservation information. So you can reserve a ticket on a particular flight using a database. It also stores the flight information, schedule information, and airlines were the first to use databases in a geographically distributed manner, right? Then we started with the disadvantages of conventional file system, right? So conventional file system, the disadvantage is that you have data redundancy and data inconsistency. So data redundancy means a duplication of data. So in a file processing system, there is a chance of duplication of data. We don't have this primary key constraints in the case of a file processing system. So it is like storing the data in a notepad or in a Word document. In the case of a file processing system, there is a chance of duplication of data. So what happens when there is a duplication of data? Whenever you have multiple copies of the data that do not agree, it leads to data inconsistency problem, right? So I have the contact number of a student while he registers for the course, and over a period of time the contact number changes and he updates, and I have multiple copies of the same data that do not agree. It leads to data inconsistency, right? So uh, so data redundancy and data inconsistency problem is there in the case of file processing system. Whereas in the case of database management system, it ensures that there is no data redundancy, right? So you have a unique value for an record, right? So we have a primary key constraint. So primary key is like your roll number is a primary key, or it's an the primary key attribute is used to uniquely identify a particular attribute value, so that there is no duplication of the data. And when there is no duplication of the data, there is no data redundancy, there is no data inconsistency, right? So again, in the case of file processing system, whenever you need to access the data, there is a lot of difficulty in accessing the data, right? So basically the data file is embedded on the application program that access the data. So whenever you need to generate some reports, right? So for example, I want to write a program to list all the students who are studying computer science in NIT Trichy, right? I need to write a separate application program and generate a report. Again, over a period of time, I need some other report, like students who have registered in CSE department and whose overall CGPA is greater than 7 pointer. Again, I need to rewrite the program to access the data. So the thing is that it does not, the conventional file processing system, it does not allow the data to be retrieved in a convenient and efficient manner. Whereas in the case of DBMS, there is insulation between the program and the data, right? So we have data stored separately from the program. Whereas in the file processing system, the data file is embedded on the application program that access it. So any changes in the data file, you need to change the application program that access it. Whereas in the case of database management system, you are going to store the data. There is going to be program data independence in the case of DBMS, right? So data is stored separately, and the program that access the data is being stored separately. So any changes in the database, you can make any changes to the database without causing the application programs to be rewritten, right? So you'll be able to again access the information relatively easier in the case of database management system, right? Then we discussed about file processing system. So in the case of file processing system, the thing is that the data is scattered in various files, and the files are in different formats. They are being created over a period of time, and writing a new application program to retrieve the appropriate data is going to be difficult, right? So data is spread across different files, and the files may be in different formats, and writing some new application program to retrieve the appropriate data is going to be difficult in the case of file processing system. Whereas in the case of database management system, data is stored together in a common relation, and right, so you have program data insulation, right? So it is easy for you to access the data in the case of database management system, right? So the important uh, things that you need to know in database management system is that database management system can it can overcome the integrity problem. So integrity problem means you need to ensure that different integrity constraints for different attributes, right? So for example, you need to ensure that a student can at most take only 6 courses and 2 lab courses, 6 theory courses and 2 lab courses in a semester, right? So it is known as a constraint, integrity constraint. Again, I will have some integrity, I will enforce some constraint, like a student should score more than 40 percentage to get to pass in a course, right? It's a constraint, right? So he should attend minimum 40 classes to sit for an examination, right? So you can keep on adding constraints in the case of database management system for an attribute or for different types of attributes. Whereas in the case of file processing system, you can enforce 1 or 2 constraints. But if the problem gets compounded when you add more constraints to the database management system, right? So the problem is going to be compounded when more constraints are added, right? So that's the integrity problem. Then we have discussed about this atomicity problem, right? So computer, like any other electrical and mechanical device, it's subject to failure. So for example, you are going to do a transaction which transfers some amount from your account to institute account, or you are going to pay your electricity bill. So some amount is being debited from your account, and before crediting into the electricity board account, there is a failure. It may be a software failure, hardware failure, network failure, or power failure, right? So the money, the transaction is, there's a transaction failure and the money is lost. It results in an inconsistent state of your database, right? So in the case of file processing system, we have this atomicity problem, whereas in the case of database management system, the transaction is going to be atomic in nature. So it ensures that a transaction occurs completely or not at all, right? So the fund transfer should be atomic. It should happen its entirety or not at all, right? So by this way, you'll be able to overcome this atomicity problem in the case of database management system. It ensures that a transaction occurs completely or not at all. Whereas in the case of file processing system, we encounter this atomicity problem, which may result in an inconsistent state of a database, right? So again, we have this concurrent access anomaly problem in file processing system. So to improve the throughput of the system, for improving the overall performance of the system and faster response, we allow multiple users to update the data simultaneously, right? So we need to allow multiple users to pay the tuition fees or pay their electricity bills simultaneously, right? So what happens in the case of file processing system is that we have this concurrent access anomaly problem, right? So you have an account balance with $10,000, and two clerks, they try to debit the same account, right, by $500 and $100 respectively. The result of the concurrent transactions, concurrent executions may leave the budget or the account balance in an incorrect state, right? So it may leave it in an incorrect state, like 9,500 or 9,900. Then it is known as a concurrent access anomaly, right? So to guard against this possibility, the system must have some sort of supervision, right? So in database system, we have some log-based protocols which ensures that the transactions, they execute serially one after another, and there is no concurrent access anomaly, right? So whereas in the case of file processing system, you have this concurrent access anomaly problem. And finally, security problems, right? So not every user of the database should be able to access all the data. So different users should be given a different perspective view of the same database. So a person working in HR department should not be able to view the finance details of an organization. Similarly, a person working in finance department should not be able to view the HR database of an organization, right? So the thing is that different users should be given different perspective view of the same data, right? So it is possible to have virtual tables and views to enforce security, database security in the case of database management system, whereas enforcing security issues is going to be very difficult in the case of file processing system, right? So this is the reason that people, they have gone for database management system, right? So any questions from the participants, right? So I have defined only database management system, defined database management system, application of databases, and we have studied the differences between conventional file processing system and database management system. We have studied the disadvantages of file processing system and why we have gone for database management system, right? So any questions from the participants? Right.
No, sir.
No, sir, I think it was clear.
Right. Right. So I will not skip any classes. I will have all the classes as per the schedule, right? So we'll try to make maximum use of this course, right? So usually when I teach this course, I offer some mini projects. So students are expected to do some mini project in Python, MySQL, and PHP and MySQL, right? So we'll try to will try to explore more from this course. Nowadays, they have moved on to NoSQL, right? So initially we were working only with structured data. Now industry, the thing is that they work more with semi-structured and unstructured data. So we have unit 5 about NoSQL. So we'll try to explore more about NoSQL databases like MongoDB and try to work on it, right? So we'll try to explore all the topics in databases, right? So thank you for your participation. So we'll meet in the next class.